Everybody. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the strategy session of our AGM this morning, the follow-on session. And we're just going to allow people to come in. So we're going to give 2 minutes for that. So we're at 1 o'clock now. So 2 minutes past 1, we're going to start. All right, we're just letting people in now. A very warm welcome back to our members who attended this morning, and welcome to those who are joining us for this afternoon. Very, very pleased to see you. Okay, so we're just going to give it another minute and let people in. Good afternoon, folks, and a very warm welcome. We're just waiting for everybody to come in. We won't be long now, we'll be starting shortly. Right, okay, I think we're going to get going now then. So a very warm welcome to everybody for this afternoon's event, where we're going to be outlining our wilder vision for the 3 counties and explaining how we're going to achieve that. First, just a little bit of housekeeping. So the session is going to be recorded. It is actually recording at the moment. I'm not sure that we're going to have time for questions from the floor, but if you do have any burning questions, then please put them in the chat box and we will follow up after the session this afternoon. So I'd like to welcome our panel for this afternoon. We've got Craig Bennett, Chief Executive of the Wildlife Trust present. He'll be giving a national perspective on our work and indeed the work of the Wildlife Trust and setting the scene nationally for the state of nature. And we've got our own Dr Prue Addision, BBOWT Conservation Strategy Director, and she's going to talk to us about the new Nature Recovery Network and how we're going to use that to bring nature back. And we've got Liz Shearer, BBOWT's Community Engagement Director. Liz is going to introduce to us the new Team Wilder campaign and explain how we want you to get involved in that. But first, we're going to watch a video. It's about 2.5 minutes long, and then we're going to hear from Craig. So thank you very much. Right, thank you very much. So, Craig, I hope you're here now. I feel a bit guilty, really, because it's amazing to have got Craig today, but he's been at our neighbour's AGM this morning. So I hope you're feeling up for this, Craig, and not too frazzled from that. But a very warm welcome from us to you. We're ever so grateful that you've been able to find the time today on Saturday to come and have a chat to us about wildlife and what we're up to nationally, which is great. Hopefully we'll get a bit of time at the end for you and I to have a bit of chit chat. That's good. So yeah, over to you. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Estelle, and really thanks for the invitation. Actually, I love coming and being able to speak at these AGMs, and actually doing 2 in 1 day is a very efficient use of my weekend, and it means I get more wear out of my Wildlife Trust polo top as well. So very pleased to join you, and thank you so much, really, for that invitation. It is fantastic. It's been fantastic for me over the last 1.5 years, getting to know the Wildlife Trust better. You know, I've been a supporter all my life. First got involved with the Wildlife Trust when I was a teenager, and I joined London Wildlife Trust when I was living on the sort of London-Essex boundaries, and have followed the Wildlife Trust closely ever since. But I was, as you might know, I was previously Chief Executive of Friends of the Earth, and I was very, very happy doing that. But then when I heard about this job as Chief Executive of the Wildlife Trust, I just couldn't stop thinking about it. It was like a dirty little secret in my head. And I had to throw my hat into the ring. And the reason, very simply, is because, you know, we are facing a climate and ecological emergency. There's been a lot of attention on the climate crisis these last 2-3 decades, and rightly so. But I think you'll agree that perhaps there hasn't been as much attention, certainly in the political debate to date, around the nature emergency. And of course, the point is these two issues anyway, they're inextricably linked. You cannot hope to solve the climate emergency unless we address the ecological emergency. You cannot hope to solve the crises that we see in nature and the declines in nature unless we address climate change. And in fact, solving one can help solve the other. And the Wildlife Trust is brilliantly placed, I think, to be able to make a difference on both those issues, and to put nature in recovery in a way that's good for people and good for nature, but also good for tackling the climate crisis, and doing that in a joined up way. And I'll explain a little bit more why I think that, but it's great to have started here last year. I did start in this job on April 1st, 2020, which I think was probably some person's idea of a joke, and pointing out just what an interesting start it was going to be to my job. It was, of course, just a week or so after lockdown began in 2020. And so getting to know the Wildlife Trusts, doing it all for the first few months, at least on Zoom and Microsoft Teams, was an interesting challenge. And during that period, I did learn some extraordinary statistics about the Wildlife Trust. You know, you think you know somewhere, and then you discover some extra statistics and they kind of blow your mind. And I'm going to share them with you to give you a sense of just the scale and impact that the Wildlife Trust has now. We are made up of a federation of 46 individual locally run wildlife trusts, like your Wildlife Trust here. And together, that's right across the whole of the UK, the 4 nations of the UK, across England, every bit of England, across all of Wales, in Scotland, and also in Northern Ireland. And also, I must never forget, the Isle of Man and Alderney, which are technically just outside the UK as well. Together, believe it or not, we have more nature reserves than McDonald's has got restaurants in this country. In fact, 1,000 more. And we estimate that 60% of the British population live within a 3-mile walk or cycle ride of one of our nature reserves. Collectively, we have something like 850,000 members, of which you are a very important part of that. But to put that in perspective, that's twice the membership of the biggest political party in this country. And actually, we've got something like 50,000 volunteers. And here's the one that really astonished me. In 2019, our education programs reached out and connected with something like 500,000 school children, which actually means, by some measures, we connect more with more school children than any other British charity, which is quite astonishing, isn't it? Even in 2020, with all the challenges in that year, we still managed to make sure 350,000 children benefited from our education programs in one form or another. So it's absolutely extraordinary. Now, I also want to just talk a little bit about why nature matters so much, you know, and there's 3 kind of sets of reasons I think that we need to think about this. And you know, we can't really pull back from just talking how important it is. Of course, nature has its own intrinsic value. We all love nature, and nature has an intrinsic value as well. But also, we as humans are part of nature, not separate from it. And it's that connection, that sort of, or lack of it, the disconnection between humans and nature over the last few centuries, perhaps, which has caused so many of the problems we face. Because in fact, our economy is a wholly owned subsidiary of nature. Our whole civilization depends on nature, and nature actually in a good state rather than a bad state. You know, for too long, perhaps, we've allowed in society have started to think of nature as something that's nice to have rather than an essential underpinning of everything we hold dear, and in fact, an essential underpinning of our whole civilization. There's no such thing as progress unless we can put nature in recovery. And I passionately believe actually that the next step of human progress will be humans learning to live fairly within environmental limits and fairly with nature in a thriving state. And the science is pretty clear that if we don't do that, maybe there won't be another step of human progress. So that's how big our mission is, and just why it's so important for us to be doing the things that we are doing here at the Wildlife Trusts. Now, Estelle was sort of pointing out that over this last year, we, as the Wildlife Trust, we've come together like never before. And actually, you know, rather ironically, it has been through things like Zoom and MS Teams that it's been easier to pull the 46 Wildlife Trusts together than it perhaps was previously. And over the last year, we've worked together to develop a new strategy for the whole Wildlife Trust movement, one that talks about the collective impact we want to have. Your own individual trust, each individual trust will have their own strategy that talks about local circumstances and what's needed in that individual wildlife trust, of course. But what we have developed and will be finalized in the next month or so is a new strategy that talks about what we're trying to deliver collectively and how each constituent part adds a different piece, bit puzzle to the picture. And it's incredibly exciting how it's come together over the last few months. We've got three big goals for the Wildlife Trust movement in the future. One is that by 2030, nature is in recovery with abundant, diverse wildlife and natural processes, creating wilder land and seascapes where people and nature thrive. We've got a second goal, which is about people taking action for nature and making sure that as a result of that, we're seeing better decision-making for the environment at both the local level and the national level and across the 4 nations in the UK. And thirdly, we want to make sure that nature is playing a central and valued role in helping address local and global problems. For example, the nature-based solutions to climate change, so that nature can draw carbon down out of the atmosphere and we can stop burning fossil fuels. Of course, we need to do that. But if we can put nature into recovery, then we will also be making sure that nature can help in tackling the climate crisis, or indeed in trying to avoid severe floods, or indeed in making sure that nature is there to improve people's physical and mental well-being. So 3 big goals for the Wildlife Trust movement going forward. And I talked about that first one about nature and recovery. One of the ways we want to measure that is with the campaign that I'm sure you've seen over the last year around a focus on 30 by 30, getting 30% of our land and sea into recovery for nature by 2030. And we think this is absolutely essential. It's part of a global target that many countries have signed up to, and we're pleased the UK has now signed up to this as well. They count it a little bit differently to how we do. Boris Johnson has said he thinks that we're at 26% of land in the country that's good for nature at the moment. The only way he manages to get there is by including all our areas of outstanding natural beauty and our national parks. But we know that sadly, some of those are actually in a worse state for nature than the areas outside them. So at the Wildlife Trust, we estimate it's closer to around 5% of our land in this country that's really in a good state of nature. And we've got a long way to go to get that to that 30% by 2030. So it's something that we are going to really hold the government to account on over the years ahead. And we need to do this by making more space for nature, building on all that brilliant work that the Wildlife Trust has done in the last few years in coming up with the concept of a nature recovery network, local nature recovery strategies, but also we're now arguing for a new designation called Wild Belt that would allow us to take land that is currently in a poor state for nature, brownfield land or land on the outskirts of our towns and cities, maybe marginal agricultural land, and not protect the nature, not just protect the nature that's already there, but actually manage it actively for the recovery of nature. And through that, we can restore the abundance of nature and get nature working again to deliver those nature-based solutions. For all this to happen, we have to do that mobilizing and organizing in communities. And that's why the Wildlife Trust is so brilliantly placed to try and make sure that we can bring wildlife back, because it's going to need that community pressure up and down across the country. People coming together to organize to protect and restore nature near where they live, if we're going to see this huge change in the decades ahead, and make sure that by 2030, our nature is getting thriving again, and actually we turn the dial on some of those trends that we've seen over recent years. 41% of our wildlife species have declined in abundance since the early 1970s. I don't know about you, I'm fed up of seeing all those graphs heading in the wrong direction. The Wildlife Trust, we want to make sure not just to slow the decline, but turn it around and see nature increasing in abundance again by 2030. So those are our big and bold aims. Now you might think, can we really do it? Is Craig just like thinking pie in the sky? How on earth can we do this? Well, we believe we can. We've got really clear plans as to how we can do it. And I'll leave you this thought. Over the last year, humans have shown that they're capable of incredible things when we really put our minds to it. You know, we didn't think that it was possible to develop a vaccine and roll it out in a space of months rather than years. But because of brilliant scientists, not least in Oxford, we've been able to do that and make a huge difference on this appalling pandemic. Similarly, we didn't think it was possible to build hospitals in the space of months rather than years, but we did it. When we absolutely realized we're in a crisis, humans are capable of doing extraordinary things. And we are in a climate ecological crisis. We now have to behave as if we are, and we cannot take longer than 10 years to turn these around. It's this next decade that really matters, and the Wildlife Trust perfectly placed to do it. But we can only do it with the support of our members. So thank you so much for being a member and supporter of your local Wildlife Trust and the brilliant work that BBOWT is doing. And, you know, long may it continue. Thank you.
Excellent, Craig. That's great. Thank you. Thank you. And now we're actually going to demonstrate how we're going to respond to that national rallying cry, Craig, through our local plans. Okay, so I know, Craig, you live in Cambridgeshire, and I'm sure it's very beautiful there. For the people watching, we live in the most beautiful region, I think, in the UK. And I guess I probably would say that, wouldn't we? But like you, we know there's a lot more to do for nature to put it on the path to recovery. And we know that locally, we need to think bigger, bolder, and wilder. And that's why our new vision for the next 5 years is called Wilder. This is our plan to put nature into recovery. Our new Wilder vision marks the end of the last 5-year strategic plan, be part of nature's recovery. And we've achieved an awful lot during that time. The Bucks and Oxford Wildlife Trust is one of the biggest wildlife trusts in the movement, and we've grown a lot over the last 5 years. And forgive me, I'm going to actually repeat some of the stats that you heard this morning in my film. But for those who have joined this afternoon, I think it's really important to hear this, our achievements over the last 5 years. So we have 86 nature reserves now across the 3 counties, and that's some 2,670 hectares of land that we manage for wildlife. We've now, I think, hit about 55,000 members. And we've got hundreds of generous supporters that give us money every year as well. Amazing donors. And we couldn't do what we do without you and those gifts. 150 staff now, and an army of 1,700 volunteers who work for wildlife every day. And over the past years, we've run an incredible 118,000 volunteer sessions. So that's, you know, that's really, really quite something. That army of people really putting their back into securing a future for nature. And we've continued to develop our 6 living landscape schemes alongside our nature reserves. And we've been working more in the wider landscape too. We've provided advice on land management to 625 landowners, And over the last 5 years, our wider countryside work has reached 76,000 hectares of land. That's already 13% of our region. We've recently launched our ecological consultancy, Future Nature, and our formal paid-for land advisory service, which is proving really popular. We've got 4 education centres and 2 visitor centres and 1 environmental centre with the Crown Estate. And we work with a huge number of schools and community groups every year. Almost 45,000 school children have been inspired by our education team in the last 5 years. And some 46,000 people took direct action for wildlife or had access, new access to wildlife and nature in their lives, thanks to our community work. We've also partnered with many local authorities, NGOs and local communities and engaged the decision makers to maximise our impact. But we know there's still much more to do. If we're going to bring nature back, I'm sorry to say our job is far from over, and this was reiterated by Craig just now. I'm looking at the state of nature today, and it is pretty dire. You know, in my lifetime, we've seen a shocking 68% decline in populations globally, and 1 million species are at risk of extinction currently. And literally, we're wiping wildlife off the map, and we've got to stop that now and turn things around. As Craig said, our climate is in crisis. We're already experiencing hotter summers, wetter winters, and we're reaching a tipping point. And nature can't cope, and neither can we, frankly. Looking locally, our region, the climate and nature crisis is real. There's inappropriate development and intensive food production, which are threatening huge swathes of countryside and our precious wildlife. Our wild spaces are becoming more and more fragmented, and wildlife is getting squeezed out. But there are some positives, and we've seen a huge shift of awareness in environmental issues. And the government is talking about a green recovery, and the UK is hosting the global climate for COP26 in Glasgow later this year. And I think, well, actually, no, it's next month. And Craig is going to be there representing the Wildlife Trust, which is fantastic. And Brexit has seen new environmental and agricultural bills promising to protect our natural world and pay those to do so. So fingers crossed we will get a strong environment bill through before COP happens next month. And COVID has brought the connection between people and nature into sharp focus. The value of nature for our mental and physical well-being is clear, and we, I'm sure, have all felt that over the last 18 months. Getting out into nature in the garden has certainly been important for me during this time, and I'm sure you all feel the same. Awareness is high. We've seen climate strikes and schools of local nature action groups setting up across our region, which is exciting to see. People do care about nature. They want to know what they can do. By being here this afternoon, you're all part of that growing green wave, and thank you for your support. As you'll see in the next few slides, you're actually a really important part of that new vision. So what is the plan for the next 5 years? How are we going to help tackle the climate and nature crisis locally? Our wilder vision for the next 5 years is simple. We want to see more nature everywhere for everyone. We want to see 30% of land well managed for nature by 2030, and that fits with what Craig has been talking about, the national and the local goals. We know that's going to be a challenge, but we also know that this is achievable if we work together. We must think bigger, bolder and wilder and beyond the boundaries of the land we own and manage, and think much more on a landscape scale. So our mission is to bring about nature's recovery through local action in partnership with you and the people across our 3 counties. We must extend our reach to work with more people from all sectors of society. So whether that's landowners, farmers, councils, businesses, schools, communities, and our local MPs. If we're going to succeed in putting nature into recovery, we have to do this. So our 3 goals, and they fit with the national picture: put nature into recovery. It's not too late, but we have to act now. As simple as that. Empower people to act for nature. You and our members and supporters are a big part of our plan, and we need to reach even more people if we're going to succeed. And finally, secure our future. We must build on our strong foundations and grow if we're going to continue our vital work into the future. So let's look at a little bit more detail then around these three goals. If we're going to put nature into recovery, we need to buy more land for nature, manage and restore it well, and make sure that the land we own is a haven for wildlife. We also have to think bigger past our own nature reserves and out into the wider landscape across urban as well as rural areas. We'll be using our Nature Recovery Network map to help us take decisions about where we work and why we want to work there. We'll be hearing more on our new map later from Prue. We will also be scoping out a large-scale rewilding project, and this is a really exciting part of the strategy, and we're looking to do this over 1,000 hectares of land, and we'll be considering some species reintroductions as well. And we also need to think about our conservation work and science to demonstrate nature's role in solving the climate and ecological crisis, such as our Okova floodplain meadow project near Oxford. And again, Prue is going to talk a little bit about that. But the science here is absolutely super important to demonstrating that change. Nature-based solutions, which Craig touched on. This word means working with nature to address our major societal challenges and finding solutions that both improve human well-being and biodiversity. Nature-based solutions are actions that involve protection, restoration, or careful management of habitats and ecosystems to provide economic benefits too. And there's lots of opportunities across our three counties to demonstrate this. We know this is not something that we can do by ourselves, so our second goal is all about enabling people across the three counties to take action for nature. Taking action can mean a number of different things. Just being a member of BBOWT is a positive action for nature that shows you support the work we are doing. So in writing to your MP, creating a nature-friendly garden or window box at home, or joining a community or volunteer group, you're taking action. We would really love to see 1 in 4 people across our three counties taking action for nature over the next 5 years. As research shows that what you need to do to start a movement, that's absolutely what you need to do. 1 in 4, so you've got to get out there and start. But for us, that means working with groups of people who we haven't reached in the past, such as those in many urban areas we have in our region. It means keeping our existing members and stakeholders engaged. It also means making sure we're reaching more people through the stories we're telling and the campaigns that we're running. Our job is to inspire, empower, and guide everyone to take action to help nature recover. The way we're going to do this is through our new Team Wilder movement. And Liz is going to come on just now and talk to us about the rollout of Team Wilder, which is a national initiative, and rolling that out here locally. So the second part of taking action for nature means making sure that decision makers are putting nature at the heart of their planning and policy decisions. We already have very good relationships with many councillors, councils and MPs across the three counties. And we will continue to grow those relationships to ensure nature has a voice. And it does work, it really, really does work. And I know for sure, our MPs, we saw in the film earlier on, we are first and foremost in their mind when they think about their local constituency and the work that is being done for wildlife locally. So considering the charity sector has been battered by COVID, I'm really pleased to say that the Trust is in a strong position. Those of you who attended the AGM this morning, you will have heard that. So alongside nature recovery and people taking action, it's crucial that we secure our future so we can continue our vital work for wildlife. We need solid foundations, financial foundations, so we can plan and move forward confidently to tackle the work that needs to be done. We must look at new areas of sustainable funding, such as private investment through habitat banking or green investment schemes. Finally, we think we should be leading as an example as an organisation. We're putting plans in place to reduce our carbon footprints and make our trust sustainable. so we can actively tackle the climate crisis head on. So let's get the crystal ball out and look ahead 5 years. And we really hope to see a positive future for people, nature and climate. If our new wildlife plan succeeds, by 2026, we will see nature in our region on the road to recovery. Our landscapes will be better connected for wildlife, and species that were struggling will have a new future and will be starting to thrive again. We may have a major rewilding project and species reintroductions on the horizon, these in Berkshire anywhere. We've seen successful reintroductions of these animals in other areas of the country and the positive impacts they can have. So yeah, particularly on flood management and water ecosystems. So there's really something for us to investigate here. Our ongoing work with decision makers will have a positive impact. We'll start to see more planning, decisions, policy frameworks, and new legislation that takes nature into account. And more politicians will understand that a healthy environment is critical to future economic success. And thousands more people across our 3 counties, just like you, will be inspired to take action to help bring about our future for our precious wildlife. This plan represents a shift for us, and I hope you've seen that in the last few minutes. To achieve this, our aim is more nature everywhere. By this, we mean going beyond our own nature reserves. And as I said, it's about being bigger, bolder and wilder. And I hope that's shown you what our ambition is going to be to create a wilder future for BBOWT. And I think now we are also, oh no, I've got one more announcement for you. It's about partnerships. And obviously I've talked about partnerships and doing more with people beyond our boundaries. And I've got one really important announcement to make. It's really, really super exciting. That's with the Blenheim Palace Estate. We are going to be signing a strategic partnership with them over probably a 5-year period. We're in negotiations now, and that will see us having influence over around 2,000 acres of their land, and that's some farmland as well. So we're going to be influencing the way that farmland is managed better for wildlife into the future. We're also going to be doing some community engagement work and supporting the development of their education work as well. There's restoring habitats across the estate and more. There's a lot more to come there. So I think to go into this new strategy with that is absolutely fantastic. But we're going to hear now from Prue, who she's going to tell us about our new Nature Recovery Network map. And then we're going to hear from Liz on Team Wilder. So thank you very much, and over to you guys.
Thank you, Estelle. Hi, everyone. It's great to be with you today. My name is Prue Addision, and I'm the Conservation Strategy Director at BBOWT. Today, I'm really excited to share with you our new Nature Recovery Network and some of the projects associated with this. So as Estelle has introduced, we want to see 30% of land across Berkshire, Buckinghamshire and Oxfordshire well managed for nature by 2030. Our new Nature Recovery Network will help us achieve that vision. So it maps out joined up areas across the 3 counties that are important for wildlife that go beyond our nature reserves and living landscape areas. So by concentrating our efforts on protecting and restoring nature across our Nature Recovery Network, we believe we stand the best chance of achieving a wilder, connected landscape and reaching our 30 by 30 aim. So here it is. Here is our Nature Recovery Network. It identifies the areas that are most important for BBOWT to focus its efforts on in terms of protecting and restoring nature. It builds on our nature reserves, which are shown in this map in dark green, and our living landscapes, which are shown in bright green shading. Now, beyond these areas, you can see that the 3 counties come alive with connectivity. So the network is made up of 3 zones. First of all, we've got our core zone, which is shown in green. These are areas that are already high value for wildlife, and they include designated sites and our BBOWT nature reserves. Beyond that green, we've got the orange recovery zone. So this buffers the core zone and includes the best places to restore and create new habitats and improve connectivity between the landscape. finally, we've got the yellow zone, the wider landscape zone. And this surrounds the core and recovery zones, of course, and includes areas that we want to see become generally more nature friendly. And we want to see common wildlife being benefited in these areas as well. Now, of course, our nature recovery network is not just about nature, it's about people too. So to help identify the recovery zone in our nature recovery network, we will highlight, sorry, we need to go back just a few slides to the nature recovery network map, which shows the big urban centres. Oh, we've got a slight technical issue at the moment where we're racing through our slides. So we'll skip back a bit, but I'll tell you at the moment about our nature recovery network and how it's benefiting people. So what we've done is with our nature recovery network, when we were designing this, we highlighted 13 significant urban centres, which we wanted to be the focus of our community and education work over the next 5 years. So what we did was we mapped those areas, and you'll see them displayed in a moment with blue circles, which basically means that the nature recovery network was built around these areas, these urban areas. We wanted to help ensure access to wild spaces and nature for everyone. Importantly, in those urban centres where people are living. So the most important thing about our nature recovery network is it's going to be used by us, by BBOWT, as a strategic tool to help guide the work that we do over the coming years. And what I'm going to do in a moment is go through some of our key projects that will fit in with our nature recovery network and wilder plan. So the nature recovery network, of course, as I mentioned, those dark green areas, those building blocks all begin with our nature reserves. They are the jewels in our crown. So we have 86 nature reserves that we manage and monitor for wildlife. And these are critical havens for wildlife, which really importantly, we want to build on, we want to build out from in terms of landscapes. Beyond those nature reserves, which again are that fundamental part of the nature recovery network, we have our 4 living landscapes. Now these include the Burnwood Forest and Upper Ray living landscape, and they've got a really long history of importance for BBOWT. And for those of you who have been members of BBOWT for quite some time, you will know that we've been working in these living landscapes for a long time. And here it is back up on your screen now. So these are really rich in wildlife and importantly contain really critical areas that we want to protect wildlife. So we want to see habitat restoration or creation take place within these living landscapes for both common and rare species. And with our new wilder strategy, we're going to be looking specifically at these living landscapes where we can look for opportunities to acquire land. In addition to that, we'll be looking to develop priorities with local stakeholders to design new conservation and community projects, which can be delivered in the near future. Now, when we go beyond our nature reserves and living landscapes, we get into our wider countryside, and we have some great partnership projects that are part of our wilder strategy. This is an example, which was mentioned already by Joanna just earlier in our AGM, the West Berkshire Wild Verges project. So this is a 3-year partnership project with West Berkshire Council, and it's aimed to create a network of wildlife-friendly corridors along roadsides. So with volunteers, we'll be surveying verges within the 1,700 kilometre road network. And what we'll be doing with that information is advising the council on habitat management methods that encourage wildlife back to these corridors. Now, beyond this project, we have some amazing new projects that are really focused on tackling climate change. And so this example is a project called Meadows for the Climate, and it's a partnership project that's funded by Ecover, and it's in partnership with the Open University's Floodplain Meadow Partnership, Longmead's Thames Valley Wildfowl Meadow Restoration Project. And basically together, all of the partners are focusing on demonstrating the ecological and climate benefits of restoring floodplain meadows. So we aim to develop more projects like this over the next 5 years, which are really great for wildlife, but also help generate many other environmental benefits. So I'm talking about things like carbon sequestration, flood mitigation, and also providing improved well-being to local communities. Now, if we talk more about the people side of our strategy and how we're empowering people to connect with nature, we do so much to work with and inspire people of all ages to discover nature. And for the last 5 years, we've been doing this in Banbury in its wild spaces. So this project, Wild Banbury, has involved working with district and town councils to improve their green spaces, creating habitats for wildlife and improving access to nature for local people. Beyond this, we've been working at the Nature Discovery Centre in Thatcham and enabling people of all ages, again, to connect with nature through a variety of ways. So our Engaging with Nature lottery-funded initiative aims to promote wellbeing in participants through activities that range from forest bathing through to meadow creation. So beyond the examples that I've provided here, we have so many more bigger, bolder, wilder actions that we will be taking over the next 5 years. These are things that are appearing on your screen right now. So these are things like the rollout of our consultancy, Future Nature, and the land advice service to influence better land management. We'll be scoping a new large-scale rewilding project, which Estelle has mentioned. We will be exploring green finance initiatives to fund our vital conservation work. We'll be doing more to engage with new and diverse communities. And most importantly as well, we're taking a look at ourselves and we're taking significant action to improve our own environmental sustainability and reduce our own carbon footprint. So now I want to finish on our Nature Recovery Network map. You can see at the bottom of this slide, we've got a link, which I really encourage everyone to go and explore the map. If we play this short video of the map, I encourage you to take a look yourselves. Basically, you can see how the Nature Recovery Network landscape comes alive with opportunity to create a connected and wilder Berkshire, Buckinghamshire and Oxfordshire. We really hope that this inspires everyone to think about what they can do to join us to help make our wilder vision a reality. So everyone, that's all from me today. Thank you for listening. Sorry about the slight technical hitch. We're back online now and back up to the right slides. I'd like to hand over now to Liz Shearer, who will introduce Team Wilder.
Hello everyone, I'm Liz Shearer, Community Engagement Director of BBOWT. As the team have just been describing, we have one aim for our work: more nature everywhere. And as part of this, I'm going to talk about empowering people to act for wildlife. So today, I'll be introducing you to our new exciting initiative, Team Wilder. To kick off, I'll share a video with you to illustrate just what Team Wilder is.
Look outside your door and you'll find some of our most wonderful wildlife, from bats, birds and butterflies to poppies and pond life. But times are changing. You may know the humble hedgehog is in trouble. 95% of our prickly pals have vanished, and they're not alone. One by one, the calls of turtle doves and nightingales have disappeared too, along with our insects, and the rate of decline is speeding up. The way we farm and build on our land is wiping out wildlife. Nature and climate are in crisis, and we're reaching an irreversible tipping point. But with your help, we can tip the scales back in nature's favour. If just 1 in 4 people takes action to help our wildlife, we can transform our 3 counties with more nature everywhere. You can start as small and local as you like. Cut a hole in your garden fence to create a hedgehog highway. Plant bee-friendly flowers in your window box, or join like-minded neighbours to lobby your local MP. Like a giant jigsaw, if everyone picks up a piece, we can create a wilder picture. But the most important piece of the puzzle is you. You can be part of the solution, and Team Wilder can help. So be part of the solution and join Team Wilder today. Let's create a wilder future together.
Now, I've seen that video more times than I can count, and it still really inspires me. If we are to put nature into recovery, we know that we can't do this alone. We must work together. Team Wilder is a community of people taking action for wildlife. We know that by working together with different audiences, it does not matter how big or small that action is. The fact that it's joined up Just like that puzzle analogy in the video, our actions for wildlife will have positive impact. Now, the Team Wilder concept is based on a wealth of social and behaviour change research. It tells us that the tipping point for influencing others can occur when 1 in 4 people are taking action. And crucially, it's about visible action. That is, you're telling others about it and sharing those stories. That's what enables the minority to impact the behaviour of the rest. The concept of this tipping point for influence forms the basis of Team Wilder. When looking at how we will go about enabling action, there's more research to learn from. This includes the need for personalising messages and making them relevant for people, increasing the visibility of activity and making it easy for people to get the right resources to enable them to take action. The coordination is at the heart of Team Wilder. Now, there are 3 clear stages of the Team Wilder journey, and it doesn't matter where you join it. The inspirational part of the journey is around relevance. It's about ensuring that the narrative we use to engage people on that journey is relevant. And that relevance, it's like a key. Now, there are a broad range of audiences and communities to engage with across our 3 counties, such as schools, community groups, businesses, and it's not a case of one size fitting all. Each person will need their own key to unlock that Team Wilder door. This piece of the cycle is about motivating the behaviour change or activity. It's about personalising the message to suit different audiences, framing the narrative to personal values, interests, or identities. Team Wilder champions will be critical to this part of the journey. We need champions who are out there right now doing their bit, however big or small, to share their story with us. What are you doing? How has it improved the chances for wildlife? And how did it make you feel? These different stories will be relevant and therefore resonate to different people and be the key to helping unlock those doors and enable new people to see that nature and protecting it is relevant to them too. Now, the second phase of Team Wilder is about making those actions visible, celebrating and sharing action for nature, socialising the change. Central to this will be our new interactive map, where we'll ask people to log their Team Wilder actions. Every action will be like the piece of that giant wild jigsaw puzzle, so that everyone can see how their individual action makes a difference, helping to create a wilder landscape. Now, we'll use different platforms for sharing these actions, including social media and our website. What is really powerful, though, is the swell of BBOWT supporters, just like you. 50,000 members, 1,700 volunteers, 12,000 children annually through our education centres. We will ask all of our supporters to help us spread the Team Wilder message, telling everyone that we are all individual puzzle pieces and we can all help. We can all be part of that solution. The last part of the story is about equipping people with the skills, knowledge and resources to take action. Our community work with individuals and groups tells us that providing support, advice or practical training enables action. We also know that communities may need support with promotion of activities or general know-how about running safe events, for example. Whatever you might need to help keep the momentum going, Team Wilder will be here to help with this, providing support, events and templates that can be used by individuals or groups alike to do their bit for wildlife. So if you're already taking action for wildlife, then you're already part of Team Wilder. Welcome on board. If you've created a wildflower meadow in the garden or allotment, or signed a petition against development on precious habitat, you've taken action. If you're part of a community group that is improving habitat in your local area, you're taking action too and are part of Team Wilder. Maybe you volunteer your time for your local wildlife trust to help protect a precious nature reserve or inspire others to connect with nature. You too are part of Team Wilder. Every single example given here deserves a puzzle piece on our map to showcase what action can be taken. Now, we're at the start of the Team Wilder journey, but in a year's time, I want to be able to feed back the impact of the individual actions have had, and it starts today. Will you therefore permit me to set a challenge to everyone on the call today? If you would like to help us support other groups, get in touch. We need wilder champions to inspire others on their journey. If you've got a story about the action you've taken and the impact you've made and would like to share your advice for others to learn from, get in touch. Or perhaps you've taken action for wildlife. Will you share your action with us and put your puzzle piece on the map? Look at our website and add your action to the map. It will be coming live on our website towards the end of the month. Or if you're someone who wants to do something for wildlife, but isn't really sure where to start, promise me you'll check out the website for tips and resources to help get you going. But also, to add to this, if there's something that you or your community need to learn about, or just need a bit of support with, promise me you'll get in touch. It's only by having conversations with people and learning about the support you need, we can tailor advice and resource to help. We are all part of the solution, and we can all connect our actions and put nature in recovery. And to finish off, here's a word from Steve Backshall, our president.
My name's Steve Backshall, president of the Berks, Bucks and Oxfordshire Wildlife Trust, and I want to tell you about Team Wilder. Our hope is to create a community of people from all different walks of life who want to give nature a second chance. We could be starting small by planting nectar-rich flowers in our garden for the bees, or cutting a hole in your fence for the hedgehogs, maybe making a wildlife pond. But we're going to build up to think bigger. All of us together can start to create different parts of that wildlife jigsaw that can really properly help nature bounce back on our own patch. So get involved and join Team Wilder.
Liz, that was absolutely brilliant. Thank you ever so much, and I hope those who are watching have been inspired by that. But I'd like to invite Craig in now. Yes, he's back, and you've watched that. So Craig, we've got a few minutes actually. So you happy just to hang around and have a chat? That'd be great.
Oh.
Okay. Can I ask you a question to start off with? Just, with your national hat on and seeing the changes which are rapid at the moment, there's no two ways about it. It's, we've got a shift in government recently. We've had the reshuffle and people moving around, and then the Environment Bill, being on the table, off the table, and ping-ponging between the Lords and the House of Commons. So what's your sense of that? Are we going to get the wins in that, do you think, that we need from a political level, at least?
Well, I don't think, Estelle, we never get everything we want in one go, sadly. Wouldn't it be lovely if we could? But actually, as long as we're determined and we keep the pressure up and keep pushing on the issue for a wilder future and that drive, what you do see is over time we ratchet up the impact we're already having there. I mean, the Environment Bill is now a lot better than it was, and it's really funny. I mean, we were frustrated that it's been delayed so much, but we haven't just got back and felt angry about that. Actually, we've used that delay to improve it further, and so that the bill as it currently is in Parliament now will set the first ever anywhere in the world legally binding target to stop the loss of abundance of wildlife species. Yeah. And of course, it's not an act yet. There's a danger it might get delayed again, although hopefully not. But the fact is we just have to keep that pressure up. And guess what? When it becomes an act, we're immediately going to be pushing for the next changes to policies, the next improvement to make things better again. We're turning our attention right now to planning in particular. And just this week, we launched our new report looking at all the changes that are needed in the planning system to put nature at the heart of the planning system. And I met with Michael Gove on Thursday, one of the first chief execs of any of the environment groups, to have a one-to-one meeting with Michael Gove on Thursday to set out our plans. And he's now the Secretary of State for levelling up communities and housing. So we've got in there early on with Wildlife Trust views as to what needs to be done to make the planning system better for nature. So we'll just keep up the pressure.
Brilliant. Okay. And from what you've seen of our plans this afternoon, Craig, I mean, we've tried our best to keep in step with what's happening nationally, and it feels like we've achieved that. How does that feel to you?
Oh, it looks absolutely wonderful, Estelle. And I think this is what is so powerful about the wildlife trusts. We all learn from each other, don't we? And there's been so much that the Wildlife Trust movement as a whole has learned from this Wildlife Trust BBOWT, and just has been really, really helping set the agenda for us But equally wonderful how concepts like Team Wilder started in one of your neighbouring trusts in Hampshire and Isle of Wight, and has now spread across to 40 of the 46 wildlife trusts. It's absolutely astounding. And I think that's what's so exciting about this wildlife trust movement, is each trust is a kind of little hotbed of innovation in its own right. But each trust is also really excited about learning and sharing information with each other. Together, that makes us stronger. Together makes us more than the sum of our parts.
Yeah, definitely. And on rewilding, I saw that you were at the Tory Party conference the other day, and there was a panel on rewilding. So what's your perspective on that, and how can we realistically apply that locally?
Yes, you're right. We did have a fringe meeting at Conservative Party conference, and on exactly this, we had Isabella Tree speaking on the panel. Many of you will know her book Wilding, based on the work she's done at NEP with her husband Charlie Burrell, and it was packed. It was a standing room only at our fringe at the Conservative Party conference. I mean, rewilding is an interesting word, isn't it? It means lots of different things to different people. You know, for some people think about it and they will think about very wide open spaces, and will think about the need to put the natural processes back in across those very, very large areas. But equally, you know, my neighbour recently bumped into me in the street and said, "Oh, Craig, do you see how they've rewilded the park?" What she meant by that is a bit of grass that's been left to go a little bit longer, not perhaps what ecologists would necessarily think of as rewilding. I don't think it matters, is the point. I think what's common in all of those approaches is just trying to put nature in recovery and trying to do it at scale and make sure it's joined up, sometimes reintroduce missing species, exactly like with beavers, and actually just kind of get nature and natural processes working again. And you can do that at a very small scale, or you can do it at a very big scale. It's all really leading to the same ends, and they reinforce each other. And again, that's what's so exciting with the Wildlife Trust, is we do have some of those really big rewilding projects that we've been looking at. Just over the last year, many wildlife trusts have been buying up old farms, for example, and using those as big rewilding projects. We've been at the forefront of reintroducing beavers, for example, and we're looking to do that with some other species as well. But equally, not least through Team Wilder and our community projects, you know, we are doing things like making sure our roadside verges stay a bit longer as well. All of that is really helpful, and it reinforces each other.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay. And then just finally, Craig, on HS2, I mean, you guys have done a fantastic job at, at standing up on behalf of the whole movement and supporting us locally as well. HS2 is a massive, massive challenge for us here, and does impact us, you know, kind of beyond belief, really. I mean, it's trashed one of our nature reserves and through another one, and that's so desperately sad. You know, what's your feeling about that at the moment on HS2? We've asked for it to, you know, for them to stop and rethink it, but I don't know, any thoughts from you, sort of final thoughts on that?
Look, it is desperately sad, isn't it? And I really feel sorry for all of your members and everyone in the region that is seeing the devastation caused. You know, I visited earlier in the year and saw the devastation at Calvert Reserve, and it was heartbreaking, absolutely heartbreaking to see it. And I can't imagine what it must be like for staff and volunteers that particularly worked at that reserve over the years and have seen that kind of devastation, and also along other parts of the route. You know, we have really tried to stand up to it strongly. You know, there's obviously been legal challenges that your trust has led and others have led as well. And we will continue to push for a rethink about HS2, because you know, there's all sorts of options there, but just ploughing ahead as they have been to date is not the way forward, we don't think. And lessons also need to be learned by government here on basically how to do major infrastructure projects well, because HS2 is not a major infrastructure project being done well. And we will actually have a report out within a month or so that actually tries to draw on those lessons from HS2 and advocate changes at large about how to go about major infrastructure projects, because we cannot have anything as devastating as HS2 happening again. Yeah.
Craig, thank you very much. And yeah, brilliant. Thanks for your time this afternoon. Really greatly appreciated. And I will see you next week at the Leaders Conference. So I'm very much looking forward.
It's a pleasure to be with you. And thanks again to all your amazing supporters.
Fantastic. Thank you. And thank you to everybody else for joining this afternoon. I hope you are going to go away inspired by what your local wildlife trust is planning to do over the next 5 years. Any questions, you can get in touch with us. We've posted there a few links in the chat. So great, thank you very much. I have a wonderful rest of the weekend, and we'll see you again very soon. So thank you.